The morning my boat went under, I was gripping a little wooden elf with both hands and praying out loud. I was hauled into a rescue skiff shivering, alive, and clutching a toy. By sundown, I knew two things. My elf was saved, and my own son had set me up so he could get what he thought I was about to leave behind. Quick pause, subscribe, hit like, and drop your city in the comments so I can say hi next time. My name is Elaine Parker, I'm 66, and until June I could back a 24-foot Grady White into a tight slip behind Davis's pub better than men half my age. The blue thistle wasn't new, but she was steady. My husband Hank and I named her for my grandmother's tea tin, and he carved Little Finn the elf the winter he lost his hair to chemo. Every boat needs a guardian, he'd said, sanding the little cap until it shone. After Hank passed, Finn rode the helm like a tiny lookout. If you see an older woman in Annapolis talking to a wooden elf as she checks her lines, that's me. That Tuesday, the river smelled like marsh and diesel. I'd left the slip at 4:58 a.m. to beat the crabbers to my favorite stretch near the mouth of the Severn. 2 minutes into idle, the bilge alarm chirped, then went silent. The dash lights fluttered. I lifted the hatch and felt it, the sick chill around my ankles that said there was water coming from someplace it shouldn't. I won't tell you how a person can sink a boat. Heaven knows the internet has enough mischief, but I know what a boat looks like when she's helped on her way. It wasn't the first leak I'd fixed, the first wet mess of a dawn. It was the first time my fingers found a switch already down that I never turn off. I called it in. A crabber out of Eastport, a grandad with a flag that said Debbie's Dream, got to me first with a gantry of pots swinging. The Coast Guard took my statement. I rode home swaddled in wool and heat and shock, Little Finn in a foil blanket under my chin like he was catching a cold. The elf's paint was chipped on one ear where I must have knocked him, a tiny blonde wood peeking through the green. You came up too, I told him, and I meant it. I showered, lined up my pill organizer, 2 for blood pressure, 1 for the thyroid, the little orange one for my knees, and sat at my kitchen table. The hydrangeas outside were ridiculous, fat blue pom-poms I'd cut with dull scissors and stuff into a church vase on Sunday. I called my son Dylan. I'm fine, I said. The boat, well, it's not. He didn't say, Mom, or are you okay? He said, flat, so insurance will pay out then? I told you not to be out there alone. There are some sentences that fold and put themselves away in your memory. Dylan asking about the payout went into the drawer where I keep receipts for warranties and the dentist's reminder cards. Hank used to say, you collect details like buttons. He meant it kindly. I looked at the clock, 7:16 a.m. Tuesday. Dylan said he couldn't come over. Kendra's got the car, he said, mumbled something about a job lead in Laurel, and hung up. At 2:03 p.m. my email binged. Subject, your Helic application, verification needed. I stared at the body of the message. Thank you for applying for a home equity line of credit, Elaine, it read, with my address correct. My last 4 digits blinked. I didn't apply for anything. I called the number, read off case numbers to a patient man in Phoenix who called me Miss Parker and told me an application had been started at 9:11 a.m. same day, with a power of attorney on file. I said, whose? He said, it says your son. I hung up and found the thumb drive where I scan everything important, old titles, the warranty for the cast iron skillet I won at church bingo, the last will Hank and I wrote before his second round of chemo. I keep them in a cookie tin with a blue thistle. My heart did the thing it does when church ladies sing a mezzo that's too sweet, went tight and unhappy. I hadn't signed a power of attorney. I checked my texts. Dylan's last, can I swing by tonight? Need to grab some of Dad's fishing stuff. Timestamp, 1:17 a.m. Tuesday. That was before the boat sank. I walked the small rooms of my house and touched what anchored me, the quilt block stacked on the dining chair, the magnet with Pastor Ruth's number, the dent in the pantry door from the Thanksgiving the grandkids came in hot and hungry. On my counter was a crumpled receipt from CVS, hydrocortisone cream, hearing aid batteries for my neighbor, a birthday card for my choir friend Dottie. I keep everything. I keep timelines. It's how women like me learn to make dinner stretch and time last. The thing about a wooden elf is you don't think of it as evidence. But there's talk among us widows. The ones whose kids borrow a little too long, whose mail gets lost. Pastor Ruth had done a talk last fall. Protect your dignity. Protect your data. After that, my friend Mary from choir gave me a 2-pack of AirTags. For your keys, she said. I slipped one into little Finn's hollow belly because I didn't want to lose him. It's silly, but I've lost enough. I opened the Find My app. My phone took a minute, pinching and dragging a tiny map of my life. There was a breadcrumb trail of blue dots. Tuesday, 1:37 a.m. Little Finn was in motion away from my slip, turned left on Severn Avenue, then onto Bay Ridge Avenue, then onto a ramp where Easy Pass bleeps live. The dot paused near a 24/7 gas station, looped toward Hillsmere, and stopped 3 blocks from Dylan's apartment. At 4:51 a.m., it moved again, back to the marina. 5:34 a.m., my boat went under. 6:03 a.m., the dot came back to my street. At 6:12 a.m., my door camera logged a porch motion and a silhouette, the small package shape of my elf, brought to my welcome mat and set down like a cat dropping a bird. I might have sat there in my cardigan forever if the doorbell hadn't rung. It was Mr. Callahan from the marina office, a red folder in his hand. Mrs. Parker. Sorry about the thistle, he said, looking like he'd learned to break bad news the gentle way. He had 2 printed stills from their CCTV. We thought you'd want to see. On one, my slip at 1:49 a.m. A tall person in a windbreaker climbed onto my boat. On the other, same person stepping down at 4:42 a.m., something the size of a bread loaf under his arm. I could pick out my own son's shoulders in a crowd of funeral coats. I called Dylan. Did you take little Finn? I asked. He laughed too loudly. That dumb thing? You always thought it was magic. He said he'd moved it because you're forgetful sometimes, and my hand went cold around the phone. I wanted to say, I remember your birthday, don't I? I remember when you wanted a bike, and Hank sold his favorite reel to get it. Instead I said, what's this power of attorney? He hung up again. That night I made cornbread in the cast iron, because I do that when I need to smell my own kitchen, and I put a pat of butter on the wedge until it ran shiny. I wrote a list with 2 columns, what I know and what I suspect. No, boat sank. Bilge off. Dylan on boat between 1:49 and 4:42 a.m. AirTag shows Finn at Dylan's. Email, Helic with POA. Suspect. Dylan tried to sink boat. Dylan filed POA. Reason? Inheritance. He said once, after Hank's service, it's not fair you get everything. I'd said, I got the mortgage and the busted water heater too, honey. Wednesday morning, I called my bank's fraud unit and stumbled over the phrase, elder financial exploitation. The woman said it with me so I wouldn't choke on it. She put a hold on any changes to my accounts pending an in-person verification. Then I called the Anne Arundel County Police non-emergency and asked for the Marina unit. I made an appointment with a Coast Guard investigator, Sector Maryland National Capital Region, if you like specifics, and printed every screenshot. I printed the Easy Pass report I downloaded from my transponder site, the toll at 1:57 a.m. eastbound, a match to the AirTag dot. I printed my choir schedule. Tuesday morning, no rehearsals. I printed the Helic email and the header info with IP addresses I don't understand, but some young person does. Thursday, the insurance adjuster arrived with a clipboard and a voice he uses for people who cry. I didn't. He took photos. He asked strange questions, not wrong but off. Any chance, he said, you were thinking of making changes to your coverage? It dawned on me like a porch light clicked on. Someone had called before me, put in a notice. And if my son had filed a power of attorney, he could make a claim for me. The adjuster left with copies of my copies. He said, someone will reach out. There are ways daughters and sons talk to their mothers that are calm daggers. Mom, Dylan said on Friday afternoon, when I asked if he'd come for dinner, we should talk about planning. God forbid something happens to you, I should be able to move on the house right away. Avoid probate and all that. It's just practical. He'd never been practical a day in his life except about other people's money. Of course, I said, and put little Finn on the table between my vase of hydrangeas and the napkin holder with our names burned in. I traced the old knife mark Hank made before he sanded. Some marks you keep so you can see where you were. On Saturday, I drove to the county building and looked up land records on a public terminal. There it was, a transfer on death deed form prepared and left blank, no recording yet, but scanned into a title company's portal under my name. The notary acknowledgement block named a woman I didn't know and a date I did. The date matched my dental cleaning when I was across town with Dr. Chavez at 9 a.m. I still had the little baggie with a toothbrush and mouthwash in my purse, and the appointment card they'd stamped, arrived 8:52 a.m. My receipts talk. I'm just the translator. I contacted the notary listed using the Secretary of State's database. She emailed me her journal page, my name written in a different hand, a driver's license number off by 1 digit, and a signature that looked like someone trying too hard to loop a P. The notary had recorded the signer as male, bearded. She wrote, "I'm so sorry." He presented as an authorized agent. "I'll cooperate with law enforcement." My stomach did a slow, ugly turn. My son had shaved clean the week of Hank's funeral and started the beard the week after. I could see it growing day by day like moss on a fence. Sunday, I sat in church between my friends who smell like talc and peppermint and sang alto parts one know by bone memory. Pastor Ruth preached on the prodigal son, because of course she did. I couldn't look at the cross behind the pulpit without feeling like I was caught in a joke I didn't write. After the service, I asked her in the coat room, with the sound of zippering parkas and umbrellas shaking out, what kind of mother turns in her child. She put her hand over mine and said, "The kind who loves him and herself enough to tell the truth." I told the truth on Monday to the detective from the Financial Crimes Unit. I told it to the Coast Guard investigator with a badge on a lanyard and to the bank rep who called me MS. Elaine, and to the woman at Adult Protective Services who wrote my words down and said, "We can help coordinate." I spread out my timeline on their tables like a quilt and pinned down each corner with a piece of paper, timestamps, map dots, easy pass toll, CCTV stills, the notary's journal, the Hellick email. The Coast Guard man said quietly, "Looks orchestrated." The detective said, "This is a lot." "It's good." He asked if I was safe. I said I had locks, neighbors, and a doctrine learned from decades of PTA and choir. Never walk into a meeting alone if you think you'll be ambushed. Stay till the end, I'll show the truth. On Wednesday night, Dylan came to my house with a grin he uses when he wants something. I had Dottie from choir sitting at my table like a fluffy cat who looks sleepy but isn't, and Pastor Ruth was dropping off a casserole that wasn't hot. I made tea. Little Finn sat between us like a witness sworn in by a judge nobody could see. Dylan looked at the elf and snorted. "You still got that," he said. "Superstition won't keep you from falling in the shower." "I'm getting grab bars," I said, and slid a manila folder toward him. Question. Why did little Finn take a trip at 1:37 a.m. Tuesday? And why did my boat sink later that morning? And why is there a power of attorney with my name on it? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Dottie wrapped a spoon against her mug like a gavel, one gentle tap. Dylan's mouth ran ahead of his smarts. "Okay, yes, I moved that thing because the wind," he said, "and I thought I'd help you with some paperwork, because you drag your feet on everything." Through the front window I saw an unmarked car ease to the curb. The detective had asked me to call when Dylan was over, not for a sting, he'd said, just to talk. I dialed my phone under the table and said, "Come on in," to nobody, and my front door opened to 2 officers who asked my son if he would speak with them outside. He laughed. Then he didn't. I didn't watch. I put my elbows on my kitchen table and laid my head on my hands. Little Finn's would smelled faintly of the lemon oil I use on the shelves. The detective came back in 20 minutes, with a polite face that didn't match his eyes. "Miss Parker," he said, "we'll be in touch." In the driveway, Dylan's voice rose and fell, words I couldn't hear. When the car left, the house got quiet. I slept light and woke at 4:12 a.m. to a notification ping, "Find my little Finn moved." The dot shifted from my kitchen to the living room. My cat Mabel knocked the elf over. I picked him up and laughed, a tiny, startled sound in the dark. Sometimes the things that save you are silly, and sometimes they're small enough to fit under your palm. I rubbed my thumb over the chip in Finn's ear and whispered, "We're not done." The week after the sinking felt like a season inside a jar. Time stretched, light bent weird through it. I did what women do when the world comes loose. I made lists. I bought onions. I paid the BGA bill before it could become a worry. I folded the towels from the line so they didn't sour. And between the chores you'd call normal, I became a clerk of my own survival. First, I got my accounts frozen to changes unless I showed up in person with a face they knew. The bank gave me a bright orange folder stamped fraud hold like the color could scare thieves. The fraud rep printed me a log of an attempted wire transfer that had been initiated by agent at 9:23 a.m. Tuesday and denied pending verification. Good system, I said, and meant it. She also printed an alert where someone opened a new email using my name with a 1 added to it. I circled it and added it to the pile. Second, I met with a woman from the state's attorney's office who talked fast and clear. We're looking at a few possible charges, she said. Forgery, attempted theft scheme, possession of a counterfeit ID, attempted identity fraud, and possibly insurance fraud if he made a claim. She explained that I'd be asked to give a victim impact statement later if it came to that. I'll write it down, I said. Writing is how I remember. Third, I went back to the marina with a blueberry loaf and a copy of my AirTag map printout. Mr. Callahan gave me a zip drive with the footage segments I asked for, Dylan boarding and exiting, timestamps crisp as cereal box dates. He also had an invoice for a marine electrician who'd inspected the remnant of my build system. He said things were tampered with, Mr. Callahan said. I held up a hand. Don't tell me how, I said. Tell the Coast Guard. He nodded. He'd been a boy once, I could see it in his face, and now he had the slow, sure patience of a person who's seen storms and marriages and knows that some days the best help is the kind that stands still. In the middle of the practical, I cried twice. Once in my quilting circle when I pricked my finger and bled on the white muslin and Dottie said, "We'll turn that into a heart." Once in my car in the Target parking lot when a boy with a cowlick called his mother Mommy, and she wiped his chin with a napkin, and I saw myself years ago, with a son who wanted everything I could give, and then the rest, too. On Thursday, the Coast Guard investigator called. "Miss Parker," he said, "we coordinated with A County. We executed a search warrant at your son's residence." My breath went tight. "We recovered some items, a blank notary stamp, your original spare boat keys, a draft of a deed instrument with your name, and some emails. We also found the AirTag in the wooden elf when he tried to toss it outside the back gate as the team arrived." I imagined Dylan, panicked and graceless, flinging a toy over a fence like that could erase a route of blue dots. "There's more," the investigator said softly. He took out a policy a year ago naming himself as beneficiary on a loan instrument tied to property improvements he never made. It's complicated. The important part is it will be part of the record. I baked a lasagna I didn't want and delivered it to Pastor Ruth for the community freezer, because sometimes making a casserole is just a way to hold your hands quiet. On Friday, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. "This is Kendra," the voice said. My daughter-in-law never called me. She texted pictures of the grandkids at Halloween and a thank you when I Venmo'd for soccer cleats. I didn't know he was going to. "I didn't know," she said, words tumbling. "He said it was just paperwork to help you. He told me not to ask." I believed her and I didn't. Both things can be true. "Come by Sunday with the kids," I said. "I'll make pancakes." It didn't mean I had to set myself on fire to keep anyone warm. It meant I have a kitchen and flour and I'm still someone's grandmother. Monday arrived with an arraignment. I ironed a blouse the color of storm clouds and pinned my hair back with the clip Hank always called my teacher clip and sat in the second row behind the prosecutor. Dylan came in wearing a suit that fit like a borrowed promise and stared at his shoes. The charges sounded heavy when read out loud, like bricks dropping in a barrel, attempted theft over $100,000, forgery of private instruments, attempt to commit insurance fraud, identity fraud, exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I bristled at that last word. Vulnerable. I understand the category, I don't love the label. The judge granted pretrial release with conditions: no contact with me, GPS monitoring, surrender of his passport. Kendra wasn't there. I wanted her not to see him like that. Keep watching, there will be justice. The investigation turned up a trail even I hadn't suspected. Dylan had emailed a title company posing as me, asking what forms would expedite a transfer on death deed and attaching a signature image he must have stolen from an old document, my letter to the PDA signed, Elaine, with a cheery curve. He texted a buddy about getting the boat thing done like he was talking about grabbing a pizza. He'd Googled how long before insurance pays on loss in a browser that still had the little weather widget set to our zip code. Every reckless thing a person does leaves a scent if you know where to sniff. I gave my statement to Adult Protective Services in a small room with a fern that someone remembered to water. The worker asked me if I had ever been pressured to sign documents before. I told her no, not papers. The pressure had been to be a wallet with a pulse. Just this month, Mom, and the shame of saying no to your own child when the mortgage on his pride is past due. She slid a resource list across the table, counseling options, a support group for financial exploitation survivors, a pamphlet from the state attorney general's office with a gold seal that said report. I took all of it. I'm not ashamed to need help. That's a younger woman's pride, the kind that keeps your mouth shut until your teeth hurt from clenching. My insurance claim, handled by a different adjuster now, came through in part. They covered the salvage and some of the equipment. They didn't cover the hole the loss punched in my mornings, or the fact that I still turned my head to look for a boat that wasn't there. But money isn't a hug, and it was enough to keep me from having to sell Hank's tool chest or my own wedding band. At the end of August, the state's attorney offered Dylan a plea. His public defender argued that no money had actually moved, that the boat sinking could not be definitively proven as intentional, and that he was a first-time offender. The prosecutor countered with my stack of printouts bound like a school report, the texts, the drafts, the notary's journal, the AirTag map, the marina video, the marine electrician's report, and the fact that someone had tried to become me on paper. The plea would reduce a few charges, keep the top count of attempted theft scheme, and require restitution and a no-contact protective order. He'd have a felony. He'd have to attend counseling for financial abuse and mental health. If he violated any condition, the full sentence would be on the table. We scheduled a hearing. The week before, Kendra came by with the kids. We made pancakes with too many chocolate chips, and I let the little one stir until the batter was more joy than chemistry. Is Daddy in trouble? The older one asked. He made a lot of mistakes, I said. Sometimes grown-ups do. But grown-ups can do hard things to make it better, too. We ate at the kitchen table where so much had happened, where little Finn now sat on the windowsill above the sink like a lifeguard. I'd washed and oiled him, but I kept the chip in his ear. Some chips are honest. The hearing lasted an hour that felt like both a year and a coffee break. When the judge asked if I wished to speak, I stood with my hands folded so they wouldn't shake and read from the paper I'd written at my kitchen table after the cat stopped pawing at the pens. Your Honor, I said, my husband made me a wooden elf when he was dying so I'd have something small and solid to see when I was afraid. This year, my son tried to replace me with a stack of forged papers and bad decisions. I am not a pile of assets. I am a woman with a choir robe, a garden of hydrangeas, and a boat that went to the bottom because someone couldn't stand to wait. I don't want revenge. I want truth and safety for me and for my grandchildren. I want my son to learn the word enough. The judge nodded. Dylan stared at the table. He pled guilty to attempted theft scheme and forgery, with other counts null prost as part of the plea, and the court entered a 3-year suspended sentence with 18 months of home detention, 5 years of probation, mandatory counseling for financial abuse, and a no-contact order protecting me for 5 years unless I initiate through counsel. He was ordered to pay restitution to the insurer and to me for unreimbursed losses, and to perform community service with an organization that helps seniors with home repairs. The judge looked over his glasses and said, "Your mother is not your bankroll. She is your mother." Outside the courthouse, I sat on a low stone wall and let the sun find my face. Dottie handed me a tissue. Pastor Ruth hugged me and whispered something about justice rolling down like waters, which felt right since water had started this whole mess. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt deranged, like the picture frames on my mantel had been tilted back straight. Don't click away, he'll get what's coming. The real end of the story isn't the sentence, it's the paperwork after. I changed my will. I hired a fiduciary through the bank to act as a professional personal representative when I'm gone, so no child will have to be tempted into being a villain. I put the house into a revocable living trust with a successor trustee who does not share my DNA. I added TUD designations where appropriate, checked that every beneficiary is spelled correctly, and put copies in the cookie tin with the blue thistle and with my attorney. I grayed out my social security number on the copies like a schoolgirl shading a bubble test. Pastor Ruth and Dottie are each listed as someone my lawyer should call if anything looks off. There is power in choosing your own line of first responders. I met with the bank's fraud unit again to set up alerts that will ping if anyone tries to open credit with my name. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. I turned on 2-factor authentication with the little code text that makes me feel like a spy. I checked the notary directory monthly out of habit now, like checking the weather. I speak at our church now and then about receipts and timelines and the holy art of keeping copies. You'd be surprised how many women bring me shoeboxes after. As for the water, I can't stay away forever. In September, Mr. Callahan called. Mrs. Parker, he said, there's a 12-foot skiff that came up for sale. Not much to look at, but she's sturdy. A good creek cruiser. I went to see her. She had a rusty oarlock and the kind of hole you sand with your mind before you touch it. I bought her. I named her Second Grace. She isn't the blue thistle. She isn't Hank. Boats are like people. You don't replace them, you stand next to them and learn them. I bolted a stainless steel grab bar near the stern because I'm practical, not stubborn. I keep little Finn on the new dash, chip and all, AirTag inside his belly like a secret that saved us once. Sometimes I see Dylan's face in the grocery store crowd by mistake and my chest hurts. I pray for him, not because I'm a saint, but because not praying would make me brittle. Kendra texts photos of the kids with permission and boundaries. We meet in the park. I bring juice boxes. The little one tried to grab little Finn the other day, and I let him hold the elf. Careful, I said. He's been through it. On my refrigerator is a magnet shaped like a lighthouse with a phrase I used to think was corny, tell the truth or the truth will tell you. This year, the truth told on my son. It told on all the ways I delayed hard conversations because I wanted peace. But the truth also told something else, that I am, as the paper called me, vulnerable and also, stubbornly, blessed. Blessed to have neighbors who will sit in your kitchen and look like a casserole but be a witness. Blessed to have a sheriff's detective who knows when to knock and when to wait. Blessed to have a church that sings you through paperwork and court dates. Blessed to have a silly wooden elf that went under and came up and pointed me straight. If you're a woman my age reading this, smoothing your own receipt pile with the side of your hand, here's what I learned. Write down what happens, even if it makes you feel foolish. Save your emails. Photograph your mail. Ask questions that sound rude but aren't. Tell the truth so loudly on paper that when you have to say it out loud, it's already a song you know. And leave a chip or 2 in your story so you can remember the hard parts you lived through. I sit now on my porch with my hydrangeas and my secondhand skiff tied to the little dock like a ribbon on a package. The river looks the same as it did the morning it took the thistle, green-brown and patient. Mabel the cat suns herself, and I sip tea out of the blue thistle mug. Inside, on the counter, the cast-iron skillet cools a cornbread I don't need, but made anyway. Little Finn watches from the windowsill, small and silly and solid. My boat sank. My elf was saved. I was too. Justice didn't feel like thunder. It felt like a level bubble settling. This is my personal experience, shared for awareness and entertainment.
Your watch to the end. Be click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.